Right, let's get into it. Let's get into Rostermania. It's time. It is time to talk about it, and we're going to start with one of my favourite topics in all of the great Rostermanias. We're going to start Rostermania off by talking about Hooksy. He's entered into free agency, which that's a surprise, isn't it? Because Reddit and HLTV and probably about 50% of the CS fan base are telling me that this guy is a tier 1 IGL who would improve any team he was associated with. Now, since being benched in G2, which happened not long after their disastrous blast, where he came back from having attended his sister's wedding, played like dog shit, was promptly dropped. This was after they just won a tournament. He sat out IEM Dallas, where they used Stewie 2K as a stand-in, not an IGL, not even a statistical improvement in real terms. He played like 0.8. He had like 1 or 2 good maps, which is about what Hooksy's good for at any tournament. And they won it. They won the whole thing, which then obviously destroys the myth that Hooksy was a good IGL, because actually when he wasn't calling, that's the tournament that they win. And they won with a player that hadn't even played competitively in about 2 years. That, for me, was the final nail in the Hooksy myth. I never bought into it. I always felt he should have won more, and I'll explain why. Contextually, at the time, Hooksy had one of the best cores in World Counter-Strike, Muncie, Nico, Hunter, JKS, not bad as a fourth on a roster. It was also a time of transition for all of the number 1 teams, all of the teams above them, in and around them. They were making roster moves, like, for instance, Na'Vi was going international, etc., etc. G2 should have hands down dominated the last year of CSGO, the last 18 months, if we're being real about it, but they didn't, and it will always, even though history might show that he won a Katowice, he won a Cologne, you want to blast worlds. The reality is they should have had so much more, and I think had they had a more competent IGL, they absolutely would have. Maybe not even a competent IGL, because I don't think Snacks is necessarily a better IGL than Hooksy, but Snacks will always be Snacks, and Snacks can always have a pop-off Snacks game where he single-handedly wins them a map, even though he really shouldn't be expected to do so. And all things told, I would have liked to have seen him in the final at Shanghai. I don't think they had a terrible run, and I think Muncie kind of falling off at a critical moment certainly didn't help. But anyway, you can see for yourself that, yes, Hooksy did win big trophies, but ultimately within the context of when and how he won them, they weren't great. They're not like, he's not going to be remembered as one of the great IGLs, guys. Before that, his number 1 achievement was getting top 8 at a major with Copenhagen Flames. This is not a guy who's slept on, considering we don't put Pronax in the conversation for GOAT IGL, which is crazy to me that he never comes up. Like, not even a discussion. Nobody rates Pronax. The number of people that rate Hooksy in the scene, and I'm including professionals, I'm including analysts, it blows my mind. This guy he should never have had the G2 job. He was memed into it by Reddit, and then he got way more chances than most IGLs would have been given with the roster he had. And now people are still trying to meme him into a tier 1 team. But here's the difference. The cat is very much out the bag about Hooksy right now, and you will notice no one has beaten the door down to go get him, have they, from G2? No one's going to pay for this player. And I don't think G2 ever had any expectations about getting any money back for Hooksy. So he's just sat there on the bench, not doing a whole lot of much. And I'll just show you this statement, and then we're going to get into a whole little interesting story around this. And that is this. He put this tweet out basically saying, I will be a free agent officially on January 1st. I'm still looking for a new team. I'm open to all offers, but the most important aspect is an interesting roster with strong potential. And if you're interested, contact Vorberg, you remember him, of course, or email Hooksy at Uncore. More on them in a moment. But I thought this was kind of funny, because it's like, look, bro, an interesting roster with strong potential. I'm going to just break it to Hooksy, and I hate doing this, but this is just about the game. It's not about the people. You're not in any position to demand anything. If you get another tier 1 contract, it is a Christmas miracle come late. Like, you cannot say, well, there's got to be some potential on that roster. Bro, just take anything, or you're going to be the next MSL. Like, MSL thought he could hold on because he was like, well, my last tournament was, we won a DreamHack and I was the MVP and I was open and I proved, like, some versatility. Then I got dropped anyway. I'm bound to have options. And he ended up on some bullshit bumfuck scam org that didn't even pay him. After the rumours were he turned down a chance to join Fnatic. And MSL, by the way, is probably one of those IGLs that at some point on a long enough timescale would enter, some sort of honorific Hall of Fame. Like, not first ballot, not seventh ballot, but eventually, just by virtue of what he did, he probably would get in there eventually. So it's kind of crazy. What happened to MSL can happen to anyone, apparently, in Counter-Strike. People just have short fucking memories. But when it comes to Hooksy, because he is digging it, Chad, then people are going to lie publicly and talk about him being a prospect. I've seen the community link him with Liquid. I've seen the community link him with Heroic. I've seen the community link him with Falcons. You remember when Astralis were out there and they got Cadian and everyone was going, you should have got Hooksy instead. But there's no basis for that. There's no, actual basis for any of it. But it's just crazy that people would talk him up like this. Anyway, about that Uncore thing. The funny part is, he's in an agency now called Uncore, as you can see. And Uncore, as I said, Vorborg is a founder and a part of it. Right, here you go, look. And you're going to see, there he is. It's your boy. These are all the talent that they represent. It's all scrolling. You can see they've got Bird from Sky. He's there. Apparently still in his 20s. Whatever. Borup's in there, remember. It's your boy Zyphon is in there. And anyway, and there's Hex, there's the Canadian representation in there. So they're all there. These are all the people they represent. So they're like a talent agency, essentially. And why is that important? Well, you see, what they did is, in a bid to try and raise Hooksy's desirability, they put this thing out back in November. And obviously I went to the major and I never got a chance to talk about it. But now we can within the context of Rostermania, right? And you can see, just look at this. I mean, apart from the fact, this is like that fucking 1984 adaptation with John Hurt. And this is just Big Brother. This is how I feel sometimes when I'm an analyst. It's like Hooksy's always watching, And there you go. Also, to all the people who type stare for reasons I still can't comprehend as a boomer, there it is. There's your stare. And indeed, this stream will be like the 15 minutes of hate. Let's do it. Let's get some haterade down it. Anyway, Hooksy's story. It's been a couple of months now since I last got to compete on stage, and it still feels weird. Tournaments have gone by, and I've been trying to keep up with them like I otherwise would. But it doesn't hit the same as being there. I miss the energy, I miss the fans, I miss the competition. And you might think, who is this article for? What's the purpose? It's for myself and for the fans. Most people who know me know about the underdog run in Stockholm or the tournaments I won with G2. But this is about the parts of my story I haven't talked about before in other interviews. These are my reflections and my completely biased thoughts and learnings from the last couple of years. Why I am as I am and the things I'm looking to improve on. So anyway, he talks a bit about growing up and how he was competitive and, played sports. I mean, that applies pretty much to almost any esports player. He then talks about different teams and that he was a bit of a journeyman, but when he got into Flames, he ended up taking a big step up in 2021. By the way, someone get Nomad on the phone. They're using your pictures, Nomad. I'm sure you're going to get very upset about that, right? For sure, because there's no such thing as the Danish mafia. So you'll be demanding that they take this down. I'm sure, very much so. You'll be threatening to sue them, right? That's your game. But anyway, he said here where he was talking about, I played an IEM fall, and just 2 weeks later I was going flawless in the challenger stage of the Stockholm Major. I was on a complete high at this time emotionally, having just competed against the best of the best. It was a feeling that was hard to shake off when the major ended, and both myself and the rest of the team struggled to get out of that first moment of glory. We just played the most important tournament in the game, and now we had to go back to grinding online against Tier 2 and Tier 3 teams. No longer were we the underdogs in our matches like we'd been used to. We were the favourites in many games, and we started to lose a lot. We were getting more and more demotivated, had to prove ourselves again. Issues when it came to performance weren't getting fixed as fast, and we started getting lazy, even with the easy stuff like showing up on time. I remember being so frustrated. We had just played against some of the best teams in the world, and now we were losing to whoever, making stupid mistakes, and not putting in the effort to get back to form. When it comes to competing, I want to hold myself and others accountable. My expectation is that people will put in the hours necessary to achieve something and stick to their word. Like if the team agrees on an issue and comes up with a solution, and the attempt at that solution is then just thrown away or ignored, I get so annoyed. It is not that the problem is not being solved, because it is not a guarantee that the first solution is going to work, but if there is zero effort, then what is the point? I believe that you can comment on issues like that nicely a couple of times, but if it continues, then you can use a rougher tone to get through to people. Otherwise, how is it going to change? But I'll also compliment my team when I see that effort, like after Stockholm. Even though we lost, I was so proud of the team. Now, all of which is to say here, you will notice he's using the we, but he's not using the royal we, right? He's using the we. He's shitting all over his teammates. He's saying they didn't turn up on time. They didn't keep their promises. The reason for failure was people just took their eye off the ball. He's not saying I didn't turn up on time. He's not saying I didn't do the things I did. And so for me, this is another thing. This is what I mean about the Hooksy syndrome. Like when he got up on stage and he said to Kassad, anyone who criticizes me doesn't know anything about the game. He's created a world where none of it is down to him. Hooksy is a lot like JKS now. He cannot fail. He can only be failed by you, the fans. He goes on, taking the jump from Flames to G2, I came in having so much higher expectations of my teammates for no good reason. It made me skip steps, and I just assumed we saw eye to eye on several things within the game. And for the first time, I didn't have someone to help me implement my ideas in the past, making it so we didn't start off on the right foot. If I had the opportunity to do it over again, I would have started much slower. I make sure the team had time to understand my way of viewing the game and what I require from my teammates to perform. I would discuss expectations for results in tournaments way less and just focus on the team working well together. In the beginning, it was also a tough fit culture-wise within the team. My entire career I played on Danish teams, with most of us growing up with the same style of teaching in school and sports. So immediately, it's kind of crazy to think if I could go back and do things differently, I would lecture players like Nico on why my way is best. I don't know, bro. Not a great advertisement or a good reasoning, really. I don't want to sound crass, but I maintained at the time, if Nico was ever going to be in IGL, this would have been the perfect environment to do it in. And he says he's going to do it at some point. I think his temperament has developed incredibly over the last few years. Mouse Sports Nico could never have been in IGL, but he's a different person now. Got a lot of the shenanigans out of his system. And it's kind of crazy to put this out there. He said, the way I saw it was the IGL and coaching staff set the direction and the rest of the team followed that course. Not that I believe there was anything wrong with the committee way of working, but it just wasn't what I was used to. And going back to my very direct approach to feedback, I have learned this is not always the best method. I had been with the same team for a while in Flames, so it was easier for everyone to take the bold criticism we would give each other. Joining an entirely new team with an entirely different team culture, I had to adapt. I used to think that being upset also showed how much you cared, how much you wanted the team to improve, but I know now it wasn't always effective. Sometimes you have to deal with things more privately, and sometimes I probably took it too far and just needed to move on with things for the sake of the team. It goes on. We'll jump ahead, because as you can see, it's a long article, and not a great one. I don't know if this was ghost written or whatever, but there's things in here I wouldn't have said, especially if I was looking for a team. Essentially, reading between the lines, I had a poor temperament. I can only work really well with Danish people. I mean, these are the things you're essentially implying in your article. And obviously, well, guess we'll have to wait and see what team you end up on, if any. My time in G2 was a roller coaster, but it was a roller coaster that taught me so much. I know my capabilities and my restrictions as a person. I was exposed to different types of team environments and cultures, a ton of media attention, all of which I try to use to be better in the future. I've heard a couple of places that I'm toxic or that I can be a mood killer. I understand why people could view me like that, or if they hear certain stories about me that they would come to this conclusion. Doesn't rebut them. You'll notice. I'm not perfect and constantly evolving and trying to become a better leader. For the first time in my career, I really have had time to truly reflect and get a breather, as I haven't competed actively for a while. This time has allowed me to learn to take better care of myself, both physically and mentally, something I never really put much thought into before, as I was hyper-fixated on the game, and it's been incredibly good for me to get this recharge, but I'm now itching to get back to the game I love. I want to prove once again to all of you and to myself that I belong at the top, and I am deserving of lifting the biggest trophies. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know, brother. I think this probably didn't help. And I also think deserves never had anything to do with competition. I always think when people say I deserve things, always turns me off, you know, because it's like, you don't, put it this way, deserve, right? Well, we've just seen Carrigan be denied something you could make an argument he deserved. Sports doesn't give a fuck about your feelings or any concept of what you think you might be entitled to. You just have to turn up and be the best person on the day, and that isn't always possible unless you are some sort of phenom. And, brother, that is not you. So, I never liked that, I used to, even playing fucking semi-pro rugby, you would hear people afterwards drowning us, we deserve to win that one. Used to drive me up the fucking wall. Didn't win. That's what matters. What you think should have happened, largely irrelevant. How do we fix it? How do we make sure we're not, crying into our beer next week? But people didn't have the attitude, Now, I'll also just add, just some of the people they've worked with, right? Just leaving that there for a moment. And then we'll move on. Now, some people had some opinions about this, about Hooksy going into free agency and what it might all mean. But one person's opinion must be discussed above all others, because like all good hero stories, you must have a villain, a worthy nemesis, right? And so I remind you all about a man called Kassad. Kassad is an analyst, former analyst, I should sort of say, technically. He's still dealing with all the bleed bullshit where he was a GM and / coach over there. And he said, there's such a big demand for IGLs these days, and nobody is taking Giga Chad, that's Hooksy's nickname, for 7 months. Where are all those people saying he's a top 3 IGL, God tier caller, the next Messiah? Give me a fucking break. Now, obviously, Kassad, just to spell it all out, Kassad is friends with Nico and Hunter, right? And he thinks that not having a better IGL essentially denied them more trophies. And now Nico has decided, fuck trophies, I'm going to the Falcons train wreck for the bag. The bag is more important. And so maybe Nico is going to be the next Guardian in the sense he's going to be one of the best players to ever touch the game who never gets a major. And we're all looking back on what a tragedy it is because, choices do indeed have consequences. As a result of this, whenever Hooksy did well, or Hooksy would sort of rub it in Kassad's face for criticising him, and that's where that quote comes from, quite famously. Anyone who it was Hooksy, fair play, big balls. He went onto the desk, stood next to Kassad, said, anyone who criticises me doesn't know what they're talking about. And Kassad pulled the face, which was an epic meme. But obviously, Kassad has forever been preying on Hooksy's downfall ever since. Now, this to me is just, if you know all that, this is just valid. It's borderline playful. I don't think this is beyond a joke, beyond the pale, right? I just think this is what should happen in a healthy sports environment. And obviously, Kassad's got his reasons, and Hooksy's got his reasons. Hooksy didn't respond to this, but Reddit did. Reddit thought this was beyond the pale. On that day, it was despite everything, it was the #1 thread for a time. Kassad on Hooksy's free agent announcement. You can see it was only 4 days ago it got put up there. Everyone's been talking about all of the transfers, but this drama. And look at these comments. This is like Joker level obsession at this point. I mean, it's not, but he is going to tweet about him. It's a deliberate attempt to stay relevant. Just a parasite on someone who actually did something in CS. So if you wanted to be relevant, the person you apparently anchor yourself to in parasitical form is a washed up IGL who played for exactly one good team in his career, won nowhere near as much as he should have, and is now in free agency. That's that. Then somebody said Kassad did something once. Every single project after that was a colossal, no pun intended, failure, and he's absolutely awful as an analyst. He was a terrible coach before Renegades, and a big joke as a player in the Balkan scene during the early CSGO era. He also got called an annoying wank stain. You can see here why this thread caught my eye. I had the bingo card ready. Hands down the most annoying person in CS2 esports. Thorin could give him a run for that title. Thorin's at least good at his job. Worse than RL and Thorin? Doubt it. They're all cut from the same cloth. Yes, yeah, me and Kassad famously, loads in common. Me and any Balkan-raised person, loads in common. They're all cut from the same cloth, except at least RL can be professional on camera when he needs to be. I mean, so can Kassad. This guy is the biggest fucking loser. Holy shit. Hooksy hasn't played for G2 for 5 months. Yep, so Hooksy's the winner. Hooksy's winning, right? Why isn't Hooksy playing for G2 anymore? Classic. Sleep with the wife. Kassad's actions make me like him. His words make me despise him. Which one's more important, I wonder? Somebody theorising Hooksy's going to join Nico in Falcons. The reason he's joining Falcons, one of the large reasons, is Hooksy's abject failure, but Kassad thinks he's alpha because he's trying so hard to look like Jason Momoa. Don't know. So, we'll see where Hooksy ends up. He's got approximately 2 weeks to get onto a team, and it's like Kassad's right. The way people talked about this guy should be a given he'd walk into another tier 1 team, right? If it's not just a Reddit circle jerk, he should walk into a team, no problem. But we'll see. Also, while we're talking about people desperately trying to make a comeback, let's also just talk a little bit about where we're at with Falcons, right? And I guess we're just going to ignore some of this reporting. You'll remember on the last Rostermania, we talked about how it was a report by Nell who Falcons were targeting, and they supposedly were going after you jerks and Jambo, right? You jerks and Jambo. A bit of a humiliating climb down from the likes of Munacy and Jimfat, right? And so anyway, this was a report that was put out by Nell. Now, just a quick thing. I thought Nell's quit. I thought, didn't he say he was, not doing any more esports reporting or whatever? But he couldn't resist the lure of the fucking Rostermania, the lure of the Rostermania. He came back and started posting things. Now, here's the problem with this, right? So Falcons, look, right, HLTV, because they always back up Nell's reporting. Nell's had a very good record, but he might be on some sheep esports shit here where 80% is good enough, right, guys, for reporting? I don't know about that one. But and also, I've told you, they've broke the rules now. The rules are this. Here's what you do. You just say, they've entered talks and have a verbal agreement. And then if it breaks down, you go, that verbal agreement didn't come through, guys. That's all you have to do. Just use the phrase, verbal agreement, verbal agreement. That's all you have to do. Verbal agreement ain't worth the paper it's printed on, is it? So anyway, he's back. Look, this is what they did. But now Falcons, according to Nell again, they're not in talk. They've decided you jerks and Jambo ain't gonna cut it. And who are they after instead? Well, according also to Nell, they are now after the trio of heroic players. So they want to get Kixon, Tezes, and Degster. And so there was another tweet from another fucking clout goblin at this time. And this was obviously Overdrive. He tweeted on the day this story got published by Nell, the biggest deal in cybersport has been done today. Refused to elaborate. Any details on that, Overdrive? Nah, just the engagement. And a lot of people are saying it's Degster and this core going to Falcons. So I don't even know. But anyway, what I love about this is, let's just start with the first thing. Is anyone doing anything at Falcons? Does anyone understand linear time at Falcons? I have to ask, and here's why I ask. Because you do understand there's a deadline, right? You do understand there's like a deadline. You have to have your shit in order by. And if you want to assemble the fucking team, the super team you keep alluding to, that you're going to, if you want to post dominoes as if you're actually actively, pulling all of the strings in everything that's going on, you have to plan. Like, you have to go and get a verbal agreement at the very least with Munsey. You have to fucking go and fucking talk to him and say, look, 100% you're going to sign. We're going to put a contract out there on this day and you're going to sign and we're going to do this deal with G2. Like they fucked up last time with Nico, right? You have to be out there doing these things and doing it simultaneously for everyone months in advance. Because you see how smooth the Rops thing has just happened? You see how, like, the Rops thing, it just went, Rops is at FaZe, he's phoned it in for a year, he's played well at the major playoffs, and now he's going to Vitality, right? And it's just smooth. It's just not a problem, right? What is going on at Falcons? This is going to be the second year in a row they have said we are building a super team. And all the names that are getting leaked, and by the way, these names, as we'll get to, are very often being leaked by Falcons themselves, right? Because they want to be associated with these players in everyone's minds. And then we're here, we've gone from you jerks and Jambo, which, by the way, I guess we're just not going to talk about now, putting out those names and now correcting the report and just saying that. We'll just move on from that. And now the core of Heroic. Well, that's a bit of a humiliating climb down, isn't it? If this is what you're left with. This is basically a run back of what you did with Ents. You take an established core that's kind of like, yeah, we can get top 8 at a tournament every now and then, but there's no reason to think this is an incredible fucking move. Like, is anyone excited about this? Probably Thorin, because he thinks Dexter's just some insane talent that's about to get unlocked. He probably is. I'm not. I don't think this is. And also, I'll just put this out. So I have to believe that this was dominoes, right? Not chess is what they should have done, but whatever. They used dominoes. I don't think they understand dominoes. They didn't even use a game of dominoes, like you play dominoes. They used dominoes falling down, right? So I'm supposed to believe this is some sort of 5-dimensional Jenga being played by the Falcons organization. So in other words, Nico wanted to play. He wanted to leave behind Munsey and Malbs to go and play with Tezes and Dexter. That's what I'm supposed to believe. Yeah, I'm not vibing with that one. Not vibing with that one at all. And obviously, all the people, by the way, talking about Shush and why he didn't go. Well, he can't, can he? Because to keep Magisk. Because Zonic needs his man in there. They need that little alliance, that little power alliance, that completely cut Snappy off at the knees. And just while we're talking about this, I'm going to rate the potential move in a moment. I am told behind the scenes, this move is where they're at now, right? There's not a lot of options beyond this. It's this or bust. So once again, Heroic are going to make out like fucking bandits because an incompetent organization is going to overpay for their players, a la Astralis paying $2 million in asshole tax to get players that can't even qualify for a fucking major. Well done, guys. Heroic, by the way, probably in player transfers alone, probably been the most profitable organization of the last 2 years. It's actually crazy. And listen, they're carrying on a proud tradition. Copenhagen Wolves before them did that. But anyway, is Zonic going to come out and say now, in a year from now, or 6 months from now, when this team flops, is Sonic going to come out and go, yeah, well, obviously that was never the team I wanted. I wanted 5 of the best players in the world to just carry me to more trophies so I can cement my status as the greatest coach in the world. By the way, it's not even close for me anymore. I've seen what Blade has achieved with multiple lineups in Na'Vi. And even though I was critical in the past when they were getting fucking dusted up, going in, across 21, when they were getting wrecked by Gambit every time they played, it turned out stadium play separated the men from the boys. Blade's been at Na'Vi now for so long and done so many rebuilds, won so many trophies with different lineups, different language lineups, different players, different IGLs, different levels of talent. It's not even an argument anymore. Yeah, Zonic might have had the Astralis Voltron, right? He might have had that and won all those majors and blah, blah, blah. Blade's had to rebuild teams, repurpose teams, deal with egos, deal with people falling off, deal with replacements, deal with new ideas, new IGLs. He's done it all and he's consistently won. He's the best. He's the GOAT. He's done it now. It's over. Not even close for me. Not even an argument anymore. Is that why you called him a clown? Yeah. Yeah, that thing, that definitely happened. I did. I also, to be fair, in the spirit of me being misquoted, just yesterday, I saw someone on HLTV had made a thread claiming that I said Simple was going back to Na'Vi and they were kicking Wonderful out. Never said that. Never said that, never reported that, never even speculated about that, actually. I just don't believe that's a thing. In fact, I've said I think Simple might never come back to being the player he was. I don't hold out any hope. That's what I've said. That's my opinion. That was on HLTV. And then on the official Reddit Discord that I like to just occasionally read through and see what the plebs on there are saying, somebody said, I can't believe I can't believe Richard Lewis said Astralis were just lucky for 4 majors. I'm like, what? Never said that. So, who would say that? So, a weird one. But anyway, so yeah, is Zonic going to be belly aching about this move when it doesn't work out? And like, let's segue into rating it. Yeah, do I think this is going to work out? Well, no, I don't. Do you want to know why? Let's look at the balance in the team, right? So first of all, okay, let's look at all the parts you would now theoretically have, according to Nell. You're going to have Kixon, who is an IGL that is inexperienced. I mean, listen, he's been doing it with Heroic, and you can decide how good a job he's been doing. I think Heroic have been bottle merchants historically. Obviously, made this point when we saw them lose to Ents and against Glaive, who had like a fucking incredible series, when we saw them in Espoo in Finland. And that should have been a series they should have won. They lost to Mongols at Thunderpick 3-0 in a best of 5. Didn't get a map. So your IGL has to shoulder some of that responsibility. Now, okay, he's learning his trade. He's definitely people talk about Kixon as if he's in the same league as Shuhei, and he isn't. So the question then becomes, well, Nico notoriously doesn't like IGLs that don't think about the game the way he does. And even though he's fucking, matured and all of that stuff, it's going to be interesting to see whether, authoritatively, he thinks Kixon's bringing anything to the table. Now, maybe for Nico, this is just to take the money and shut the fuck up kind of project, and he's just going to chill and wait for next year when maybe Munacy will join and some of his homies will come in. I don't really know, but I do know that on paper, at least, Kixon does not have the authority to command Nico around the server and tell him what to do. He just simply doesn't. Then on top of that, you've got Tezes. Tezes, for me, is the player that goes missing for Heroic the most in all of the tournaments. Only in the big matches, only on stage, only at, playoffs. That's typically when Tezes goes missing. Dexter, I mean, I don't know how long we have to keep saying this, how many years we're going to be saying this. Dexter is someone who has obviously had problems with consistency. He's a monster on his day, but when he goes missing, it's too big of a loss. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. And so there's pressure on Dexter immediately because we're all going to be looking at Dexter. Essentially, he's the ghost of Munacy. The ghost of Munacy's move to the team. Magisk obviously is going to be playing typically in the anchor roles, but I also will tell you this. If you're Kixon and you're going into this team, just know Zonic and Magisk are going to conspire against you first opportunity they fucking get because they're simpatico. And so if you ever fuck up or you make a call they don't like or you make a mistake or you ever shout at one of them for a mistake they made, just know they're scheming. The knives are out for Kixon straight away in this lineup. Because Magisk is always fucking plan B as the caller in this round. And I guarantee you, as what I heard about when Snappy was the IGL there's going to be, let's say, aggressive mid-round calls coming in. So we will see. But to rate the move, I don't think that version of Falcons hits the ground running. Remember, I said we should all get real comfortable with the idea that eventually one day Falcons will just be the number one team in the world because they're going to keep throwing money at players until they get 5 that works. But these aren't the 5. These cannot be the 5. This cannot be the best team in the world. I mean, where are Heroic even ranked currently at the moment? I mean, they're in the top 10. It's fair coming off the back of what they did at the major, but I mean, doesn't really seem to me to be anything other than another placeholder solution. So I don't know. I mean, could be wrong, but I don't see it. I'm going to rate this one 1 thumbs down. It could have been 2, but it looks like they've still secured Nico. And, of course, I mean, look, yeah, you can also argue 1.5 because they didn't get the best player from Heroic, which was Nerds. In terms of who Heroic will replace them with, I just don't know. They're leaving it very fine in terms of the margins to get a roster registered. So we will just have to wait and see. But, I mean, yeah, they're going to just have to scramble and cobble together any old shit. I'll be very surprised if that money is spent on a strong lineup. And with that in mind, you can see here, Heroic won't even retain the services of Nertz, the Israeli rifler. Funnily enough, another Israeli being passed over by Falcons. I mean, you can make the argument that did they need him, but it wasn't even a discussion. Nertz going to Liquid. This is an interesting one because I think Nertz was the best player on Heroic, and I think he is a very good player and will be an improvement for Liquid. But I will say, if you're a role cell, you are in shambles over this fucking move because this is not the player they need in terms of role. They have already all of the passive players that you can fucking want. You've got NAF, you've got fucking JKS. You add Nertz into that as a replacement for Yeki. We'll talk about his benching in just a moment. We'll do it this way around. And I agree with a lot of the speculation that I've seen that this has to be one of 2 moves. What you do is you replace JKS with Nertz. That's a clear upgrade. And then you bring in an IGL and Twists gets to be the rifler again. And that's how you do this. And so that's the move that would make sense for me. Now, I don't know which IGL they could go out there and get. Please not Hooksy, but I mean, you know, anything's possible. We shall see. But let's just be real. The drop-off in Twist's stats, which I'll just visually show since he's moved to IGL, this is why you simply can't do it. You can see the gap, and it's been a very rough 3 months in terms of the drop-off. I mean, you think about his form overall, and, you know, you can just see it's kind of, you know, you need to get the old twists back, the classic twists that we remember from the fucking, the Team Liquid that won the fucking Grand Slam days. And if he can get back to that, there is enough firepower on the roster. But if he can't, and they're going to insist on him being in IGL, and we're going to get this version of Twists, that would suck. Now, are there options out there? I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think, is there an NA option? Because obviously everyone's upset about Team Liquid betraying their NA roots or whatever. I don't know. I mean, put it this way. Steel, they never do it, but he is out there. And he's playing in a team, I think he's playing with Skadoodle at the moment, if I saw correctly. Stan, back to Liquids, kind of feels that maybe bridges have been burnt there, but who knows? Obviously, we could do fucking Vanity as an obscure pick. That wouldn't happen. Nitro back again for the millionth time. I don't know. But the bottom line is, I want to see Twist Rifle. And much like Device before him, I don't like it. I've never liked it. It very rarely works out when star players turn into IGLs. Steel is said he definitely wants to compete in 2025. I just can't imagine a team of Liquid's caliber picking him up with all of the baggage and all of the history and the lack of experience and everything else. But, I mean, listen, put it this way. Team Liquid become the most watched and simultaneously hate-watched team. You know, if they were to do that move, but I hope they just get an IGL. That's what they would need to. That's what they need to do. I think they have to relieve Twists of his duties. So look, overall, this move, it's a step in the right direction for Liquid, but it has to be. They're one more piece away from being the team they need to be. Otherwise, this can't work. Another theory that some people are saying is, JKS is going to go back to the roles that he had more in the Renegades 100 Thieves days and be less of an anchor, and he's going to step up into a star player role. I just don't think he can do that anymore. I think we are a long way from those days, and why you would take a specialist anchor, someone who's made that their role for the however many months they've been doing it, and then you take it away from them, and then you rely on them in a much more high pressure environment. Also, you can retain the services of an inexperienced rookie IGL essentially. No, I'm not vibing with that, and obviously, especially when you've got the issues of we don't know if Ultimate is going to get back to the form he was showing when he first joined Liquid, because by his own admission, he has took his eye off the ball, and he's a very ordinary AWPer right now. So they need one more move. One more move, Twists off the IGL, back to being 2018, 2019 Twists, and that's what we need. That's 100% the plan. But anyway, do I like this move? I mean, look, Nerds, for me, best player on Heroic. Really happy that he's getting an opportunity to show a bigger fan base what he's capable of. I'm sure he got a very decent contract as well. And yes, I think this is a good move. That is a 1 thumbs up from me. Looking forward to watching how Liquid bet him in. And indeed, if there is to be one more move or two made between now and then. But look, why do I like the move so much? Well, obviously, let's think about what it also means. They finally done it. They have staked the vampire. Salem's lot is safe again. Yakindar is benched. I don't think I've seen a player get away with so much underperformance across a variety of roles for as long as this. This is crazy. This is like Edward on Na'Vi levels of fucking check stealing. Like, it is actually insane. He was on that roster for over 2 years, which in CS, that is a long time. That is a very long time. And look, we can say what I've said in the past, that yes, Joker Steve, at some point, there has to be a conversation about that guy and his suitability to build rosters. Because he's another person who inexplicably just gets to do these things. But, it was Joker Steve that thought Yakindar as an IGL was the future. And it was Joker Steve that agreed to let Yakindar bring in players he thought were good because he played with them in fucking Face It Pugs or whatever. That is not the caliber Team Liquid should be fucking operating on. And it's obviously Joker Steve that's allowed Yakindar languishing. I want to just put a pin in that thought. Can anyone explain why Yakindar in CS2 was so bad? I've heard so many theories about it. But here's what I know. That prior to the emergence of Donk, Yakindar was essentially playing that insane entry fragging style. That he was just a unique type of entry fragger that on his day was unplayable. Not to the same degree as Donk, obviously. But in CS2, where that type of peaking and that type of aggression is rewarded, there's no reason for Yakindar to be worse. Now, one of the working theories that I heard people say is, when there was no left-hand models in the game because people are fucking dummies. And they're like, no, it does make a difference because you have to swap it and then you can see some people do play it. There was that theory going around. Well, it's in the game now. So, where's that? Is it Snap Tap being took out? I don't know. Or if it's something more fundamental, it's a mentality issue. Some people have been speculating, he's depressed, he's not been looking after himself since he's gained weight, I don't know. And Twists did say in one interview way back when, Yeki's going through some shit. Regardless, when people use the meme, his fall-off needs to be studied. This fall-off actually does need to be studied. It's the one that's the most inexplicable to me. He never came back from the IGL move. Like, that was the... I mean, and I hope players are paying attention. When you've got something, when you're a star, why the fuck do you want to complicate shit? Why do you want to fuck your own shit up, fam? You're a fucking, legendary entry fragger. Everyone's like, wow, this bastard must be cheating, people used to say. People accused this motherfucker of cheating. He was that good. People can't even remember those days. And then you're like, you know what? I think I just want to be in charge of everything, because how hard could it really be? It's insane, guys. It's super hard. Anyway, with all of that in mind, the Liquid move, I mean, I don't know where he would rate in terms of being one of the worst signings of all time, but unfortunately what Yakindar represents, and Joker Steve will get away once again, we're not being blamed for this, but what Yakindar represents is ultimately he is the face of Team Liquid's mediocrity of the last 2 years. He is the guy that essentially came, didn't do what he was supposed to do, then became the IGL, destroyed the roster. They had to build back better, Biden style, then fucking somehow rework him into the team, not as a leader anymore. So they had to go out and get a new leader and do all this stuff. And he did briefly step up at Shanghai, but thankfully that didn't buy him another 6 months like it has every other time. And so, yeah, this had to happen. It's amazing it took this long. I'll read his little statement. He says there, as of today, I'm officially benched and open to offers. These 2.5 years went past so fast. Yeah, life does that, kid. And I can truly say that I've had a chance to play at the best esports organisation. I'm insanely thankful for all of my teammates, the staff and support. The road was not easy, but I will use them as a guide in my future. I'm ready to bounce back as an individual and a player. So, I mean, listen, I don't think you are. I think probably the best thing that could happen to Yeki would be to not get signed to some bumfuck, stupid, half-baked roster. That would be the worst thing that can happen to you. Like, if you end up joining, like, if you're one of the guys that Heroic bring in with, other randoms to fill, or if you end up, playing on a Russian team or, whatever it might be, just don't. Just take some months off, turn the stream on, don't go to Nip, don't go to Fnatic, avoid that, and then just chill. Because if you end up, when you've had a bad run like this, the next move is critical, because it's what people will remember you for, and so we shall see. But honestly, that's a thumbs up from me. I mean, 2 thumbs up, really, if we're being honest about it. You Kindar for nerds. You know me, I'm not a role sell. I think players, if they're good enough, they can learn and they can adapt, and Malbs will always be Exhibit A in that argument now. But Yakindar just had to go. It doesn't even really matter who you're getting in to replace him at this point. So we shall wait and see. Now, speaking of great evils, obviously Virtus Pro got rid of Jane, which was a very good step in the right direction. Hilariously, Overdrive tweeted out, Virtus Pro are thinking of selling Electronic. Not only was that wrong, his finger not so much on the pulse as all the way up his own ass. Not only was that wrong, they're now actually making him the IGL and building a team around him. That suits him. So, more great fucking Rostermania reporting coming out from all the usual suspects. Harumi, top of the subreddit again, guys. Yeah, this is fine. But anyway, Norbert benched again at Virtus Pro. The Good Soldier, and also named after my favourite Eddie Murphy movie. I don't know how many times this is. It's at least the 3rd time he's been benched by VP. Just crazy how it always happens to him. But you have to think this will be the last time. There's a road back for Jane before there's a road back for Norbert. That much is clear. And so Norbert, who, look, he's solid. He's not anything spectacular. He wasn't, for me, he wasn't the problem in this team. I lay it all at the doorstep of James. I would have just liked to see James get replaced by, someone, and then have Electronic see what he can do, and then we can figure out once and for all whether Electronic can be an IGL or not. Chances are probably not. But they got rid of him anyway. And you can see here, he said, Virtus Pro has always been more than just a club to me. Here I had the opportunity to go both as a player and as a person, and I've experienced many moments that will stay with me for a long time, such as winning a major when Nico doesn't have a major. I mean, think about that. So anyway, we've already got to a point where we are looking at the replacements for both of the players that have gone. Now, the first one, I fucking like this move. It's Flamus. It's your boy. Now, Flamus, you will, of course, have seen him performing particularly well out in Shanghai as part of a Gamer Legion team. There's a cool little video out that you might want to watch if you're interested in Gamer Legion and Ash and how they did. Their lineup was together for 45 days, and they got to the major. So, kind of crazy to think about and what that is a testament to their efforts. But also, just in terms of their scouting, the players that they found were ridiculous value for what they brought to the team in their respective roles, given their lack of experience. And Flamus was a very, very positive in terms of, fragging out for the team. He was clutching some rounds as well. We were very, very excited with what we saw when we were watching this in Bucharest. And so, for me, he is a good fit for what this team needs. And obviously, you've got to factor in the political situation. I don't want to be dismissive and call it a political situation, because it's not really a political situation. Arguing about bathrooms with your fucking boomer fucking granddad at Thanksgiving. That's a political situation. This is obviously something a bit more substantial than that. But as I've said many, many times, and I've talked about it, I wrote a series of articles called The Esports Iron Curtain. The longer the conflict continues, the more and more the nation of Russia will be pariahs, irrespective of where the individuals stand on what Putin's doing. And this just means that the reality moving forward is you're going to see Russians move back to Russia to play in all Russian lineups, or they're going to have to roll the dice and do what Spirit have done and essentially go to somewhere like Serbia and operate there. It's very tough right now to sort of have any mix of anyone that sort of essentially stands with Ukraine and Russian players mixing together. It's just not a good environment for obvious reasons. So this move for Flamus to go and have the opportunity to play for Virtus Pro, who are obviously the world's greatest Armenian organization, lest we forget, that's definitely a step in the right direction for him, and he's going to get a lot of money there. Certainly more than he would at Gamer Legion, and also he's having an opportunity to show he can hang at that tier 1. It's very reminiscent of Immer going to Na'Vi for me as a move. Also, Immer obviously moving from Gamer Legion. He was somebody that kind of came out of nowhere, had all these incredible numbers, was dominating players, and they wasn't really supposed to, and they were winning games they weren't supposed to because of his performances, and then he went to Na'Vi. And the step up in expectation and things that you have to do and what's expected of you, it can be a lot for some players, and it was for Immer. We saw him just recently become the first Romanian player to make it into an HLTV top 20 with basically what he did in the second half of 2024. So I hope people are going to be patient. Flamus is only 20, but I think this is a really good pickup. This is a good spot for him to be in, and I'm going to give this 2. I think this is a really good signing. I think Virtus Pro will look back on the moves they've made here, and they're going to be one of the teams that, in terms of where they were finishing in 24 to where they're going to finish in 25, I think they're going to be one of the teams that have done best in this Rostermania. Why do I say that? Because they've also replaced Jane with an antithesis of the James style. This will be Icy coming in. Icy of Cloud9. More on Cloud9 in just a moment. But this is obviously, he's a Kazakhstani player, so that's going to work out. But yes, Icy at Cloud9. He was one of the bright spots in a Cloud9 roster that really underperformed and perennial underperformers. Cloud9 for me have been pretty embarrassing the way they've handled their return to CS post Colossus project, and I think they've won a grand total of like 1 trophy across 3 lineups, and I'll talk about Groove in just a moment where I'm going to lay some of the blame. And I understand people don't think Electronic is a good choice at IGL. Obviously having Jame on the bench at least fixes that problem to some degree. It could mean there's a future where James comes back and Electronic's on the bench and Electronic ends up leaving. I'm willing to roll the dice on it one more time because I think he's got better players around him in terms of what he needs with this lineup now. You know, you've got Flit is kind of be the glue. You've got Fame. You've now got Flammus, this young player. And then you've got Icy, younger even still. And these are players that are going to look to Electronic seniority, not as a detriment, not as a something to combat and push back against, but actually something to learn from. This is probably one of the few lineups Electronic could have in this region with these players and it not become this weird fractious thing. Now, also, a lot of talk behind the scenes is Electronic's a difficult motherfucker to work with, but I don't know. I've never worked with him. I can't say. I can only speculate on the rumors that have been presented. Maybe this is going to be a team that really surprises everyone in 2025. And I'm gonna make one of my bold predictions. I think it will be. I think Virtus Pro are going to be having like some very deep runs at tournaments, and people do need to watch out because I think Icy is certainly better than Jane. He was fucking mega. You can see here, Icy got a 1.22 rating coming out of the second half of the year at Cloud9. And Icy as an AWPer, he plays the game properly. There's never going to be a situation where Icy's in like a 1v1 and he's already running away halfway around the map to save. He's going to go for it. There's never going to be a situation where the entire structure of the team is built around, can we get Icy and AWP this round? Even if it means you've got to have an SMG. That's not going to happen anymore. That's what I mean about, like, this is another Salem's Lot being laid to rest kind of situation, like with Yakindar. What Jane did to Virtus Pro in this meta is fucking criminal. It's actually criminal. And to get away with it for as long as he did, absolutely criminal. Like, it needed to be stopped as a collective before it got to the point that it's at now. So I feel good about this. I think Virtus Pro are back. I don't know if they'll win a tournament in 25, but I guess with so many, I could see them winning a tournament in 25. One tournament, not one of the big ones. Don't think they got enough juice to win like a Cologne or a Katowice or anything like that. But there's the bold prediction for Mosifa, since as you asked. I think Virtus Pro win a trophy in 2025. And I'll also say this, to Mosifa's credit, he doesn't just clip me when I'm wrong, he clips me when I'm right. And I had pretty good 24 for predictions. The Team Liquid being the #1 team in the world one, notwithstanding. I might even go back and make a video in early January, my worst predictions of 24, because I can laugh at myself in the punditry world. But I like this. I like this roster. Someone in the chat also said Icy goes missing in big games. He's 19. He's allowed to do that. But also, more often than not, he put up great numbers. That Cloud9 team were basically held upright by the virtues of, Heavy God and Icy, pretty much. They were the ones that were getting shit done. And so for Icy to come in, I think the players around Icy, just having an AWPer that actually plays the fucking game, that's going to give them such a lift. Like, just watch their stats go up as well, because they're not having to fucking put themselves in these situations because everything in VP was constructed around Jane, which just wasn't working. It just wasn't working. So these are These are really good moves. So that is overall Virtus.pro's work. 2 thumbs up. I'll commit. Just to quickly speculate, I don't think James necessarily going to go anywhere. I don't know what team he would go to now. I mean, it's a hell of a climb down to go from being the man at Virtus.pro to being on, like, Aurora, which need an AWPer, because I think Deco left. So I don't know. I don't know where he would go. I don't know if it's viable for him to have an international option. If the world was sane and terrible things weren't happening, he would be viable to go to an international lineup. I can't see Cloud9 maintaining the Russian project anymore. So with the move with Icy, and we're also seeing in the media that G2 are in talks with Heavy God, it does appear that Cloud9 is being scattered to the 4 winds. And so we'll talk just a little bit about this. My colleague and friend Maui Snake loves this move. It's kind of come out of left field for me. And once again, this is a Nell report and an Overdrive report, so that doesn't carry the same weight it used to once upon a time, but I guess we're here. So I really like Heavy God as a player. Very impressive. Again, probably the best thing about that failed Cloud9 lineup. And so him coming in to G2, theoretically, where he would essentially... Malbs is going to move to the Nico roles, and Heavy God would obviously be that more kind of, anchor kind of style player. It's interesting. For me, does it give them more firepower overall? And that's the real question. And it's a very tough one to answer, because they've done the hard part, right? The most important thing for G2 was they had to keep Munacy. If they'd lost Munacy, it's just over for them as a team. And the reality is, Malbs moving to Nico's positions, Malbs is a good player. He's going to get production in those positions. He's proven that he was a hell of a pickup. But he still can't do Nico things, because only Nico and maybe 1 or 2 other people in the game can do Nico things. I would even go so far as to argue, in a world where Nico seems to be the only player that can fucking 1v1 donk on a consistent basis, Nico is a unique value proposition for any team he plays in, and the decision he's made to join Falcons and looks like he's going to play with the heroic core for 6 months minimum, that is sad to me. That is actually so sad, because he has clearly took a downgrade for a raise in a pay grade. And that's not cool. That being said, sometimes teams can be greater than the sum of their parts. And I'm sure Reddit will be on standby for this, because there's a large contingent of Reddit that believe Nico is the problem, that he chokes in big games, that he's cursed, that he's got some foul aura around him that just means he'll never win the big trophies, no matter where he is, no matter who he plays with. There's some intangible, unspecified thing that is happening to him. That's what people say, that's what people believe, that's what Reddit will relish in if Nico wins fuck all at Falcons. So the question becomes, can Heavy God come into a lineup where Malbs is the star, Hunter is your 4th best player, Snacks is the IGL, and a demoralized Munacy is playing? Can that team be greater than the one that just went to the semi-finals of Shanghai? I don't think so. I don't. I think losing Nico is too much of a downgrade. I just don't think it can... I just don't think that, even with Heavy God being there, I don't think this puts G2 in a position to compete for trophies. I also don't see what the obvious move would be here, because if you think they need a better IGL, they're kind of missing the window to get them. And like Kassad said on Twitter, IGLs are at an all-time premium. If you can prove yourself to be a reasonably competent fragging IGL that can bring a system to a team and immediately improve them, you'll get the opportunity to play. Like, Snacks did nothing in Game of Legion to warrant being in G2 as the IGL. But as I said, by virtue of not being Hooksy, I think he makes them better overall. The next problem you've got is Hunter. Does Hunter want to stick around on a team without Nico, without his cousin? And also, he's still not really been great in CS2. And they kind of need him on this lineup to get back to where he used to be. Now, I also will give him some credit here, and not a lot of people in the community do, but Hunter and Malbs have been swapping roles around to try and make it work. And sometimes Hunter's here when he used to be there, and sometimes he's there when he used to be here, and sometimes Malbs is doing it on this map, and then Hunter's doing it on this map. Hunter has been a great team player, not in terms of what he's produced, not in terms of his numbers, but in terms of what he's done to help Malbs succeed. And I hope the community would sort of recognize that moving forward. But where we're at now, Hunter is knocking on the door of 30 years old. And at this stage in his career, is the fourth best player on this roster. Is he just a glorified Jax? Certainly you can make that comparison at this point in his career. So we will have to see. If they're going to do this particular lineup, like Snacks is going to have to really get better as an IGL. Like, they're going to have to be very tricky and smart, and he's going to have to keep those rounds up his sleeve where he pulls out a tactic, the Cadian rounds, the Karrigan rounds, where it's literally the call and the read that wins you the round. Munacy's going to have to hard carry the whole fucking time. Also, as I've said before, I'd love to see Spinks on this lineup. Spinks in for Hunter. Someone in the chat said if they got Spinks, they could play in Asia. They could do an owner pixel, but obviously, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't even know if they'd want to do that. But certainly, I don't like Spinks' chances of getting on this roster, so we'll see. But look, it's a good move. It's probably one of the better pieces you could pick up out there, and I think Heavy God's going to catch a lot of people by surprise. But in retrospect of what's happened at Falcons and what's happening at G2, Nico must be thinking, what the fuck have I done? Like, what have I done? Because if I'm Nico, play with the Heroic Core or come back to this team, maybe at the expense of Hunter, that's a fucking no-brainer. So, whatever. Anyway, in terms of G2 doing the best they can, I think they've done better in this Rostermania than I expected them to. And I think Heavy God's going to be a decent signing. That's one thumbs up for me. Oh, yeah. We were going to dunk on Cloud9. Nearly forgot. I was all positive there for a moment. So the other rumor, and as I said, I mean, this is just not even worth entertaining because we're doing the Harumi thing again, ladies and gentlemen. This is a guy who just demonstrably makes things up and guesses. He's done it multiple times. He's even deleted ones that he's got wrong. And he's saying that Exile and Boomich are going to go and join BetBoom. This was 1 day ago. This was the big story. I think Overdrive came out and said, actually, they haven't done a deal yet. It's not guaranteed. But it certainly looks to me that Cloud9 are going to get rid of the all-Russian lineup, whatever happens. And certainly this would be a step in the right direction for BetBoom, who will of course be calling Team BB for the fucking rest of time at all of the events. But does seem... I'll take this one with a pinch of salt, because Harumi did it, Overdrive did it, Overdrive took it back, whatever. Would it be good? Yeah. But most importantly is just this. I'd love Jack to come out and basically explain to fans why we tolerated what we tolerated for as long as we tolerated it. Because Cloud9 was the most popular team on the subreddit. It was the most popular in terms of the flares, the most popular in terms of the engagement. Cloud9 would get all of the attention. And they've kind of fallen so far. I mean, first of all, I'll give you the behind-the-scenes info, and I've talked about it before. Basically, for whatever reason, Jack thought Groove was a genius. and he wanted Groove more than he wanted the players. But because it was a package deal, Cloud9 have just come off the Colossus. They could get Gambit for cheap. It was like $3 million all in. They did this weird fucked up thing that everyone's just, again, turned a blind eye to. I guess I just have to accept it now. There's never going to be any accountability around this. But at a time when the world wasn't doing business with Russia, somehow Cloud9, an American organization, found a way to pick up Russian players with a Russian coach from a Norwegian talent agency, and everybody clapped and cheered and said it was super good and super great. And all the people who hate Russians, they were nowhere to be found. Which, you know, nowhere to be found over this move. No one was critical about it. Because if there's one rule in esports, Americans have to get what they want all the fucking time, no matter what the rules are, no matter what the rest of the world is doing. And if they don't, they might take their marketing money away and their audiences away. And that's just how we're living. Anyway, the funny part was the team then came in and ultimately failed. There was a good Reddit thread, a rare good Reddit thread, where someone summarized it. It's called Cloud9 Hype versus Reality. And it said here, this is by the Crazy Caveira. He's a G2 fan. So usually G2 fans don't contribute anything positive to the subreddit. But this was a good post. It would have done better if all the crazy roster moves hadn't happened on the same day he posted it. But anyway, the new Cloud9 started off by buying the then Gambit roster in mid-2022. A ready-made core that took the online COVID CS pro scene by storm. Multiple top teams were literally afraid of facing them online. That's how strong they were during the COVID period. Status, a singular IEM Dallas 1, which was also kind of hilarious in retrospect of where we were geopolitically, because an American org in America with Russian players, with American fans cheering for Russians to win the tournament. Which, look, you can go one of two ways on that. You can go, oh, well, that's all a bit weird and fucked up and hypocritical. Or you can go like that, well, what a wonderful antidote to all the poison and bile in the world. You can choose. You can choose which way you go on that one. There's only two ways. But anyway, then after a year with just one trophy won, the big one, on July 14th, 2023, Electronic and Perfecto joined Cloud9, a core of Exile, Shiro, Electronic and Perfecto. This roster had more hype than if Prime LeBron had teamed up with Prime Michael Jordan. Now, he's totally fucked that there, because that's A, not true, and B, that isn't possible, is it? Because you'd need clones or a time machine or something. But I will say, the roster was unbelievably hyped up. It was hyped up by every analyst in the scene, every expert in the fucking scene. Everyone was, all the fans were like, oh, wow, okay, Cloud9 are cooking, guys. They're cooking. They're cooking. They're in the kitchen, guys, making food in an act called cooking. Right? They won fuck all. Spoil it. They won fuck all. They won nothing. They won nothing and perennially underperformed. And Electronic played with a face like a smacked ass the whole fucking time, and everyone had a bad time. He then continues, with the huge failure to deliver anything and the Electronic IGL dream not working, Cloud9 finally decided to bring in a proper IGL in the big Boomich. Now I'm going to just say this. Boomich is not a proper IGL. He never earned that accolade from me. And I like the guy, right? I talked to the dude. I think it's great to see him getting his life back on track. He was so unfairly treated by so many people in the scene with everything that went on there, and he did not deserve for the wrecked. When you've got people posting fake revenge porn about you and insinuating you're a closet homosexual in Russia, like, what happened to him is a disgrace, and the way he was treated was outrageous. But anyway, I won't go into that. But I still think, is he a proven IGL? Ish. I guess. Whatever. Anyway, but this time their star AWPer left in Shiro. So they gained an IGL but lost an AWPer. The visionaries at Cloud9 decided they will be the first AWPerless team to succeed in CS. I mean, a lot of people said that about NIP, but whatever. Sorry, Fifth Lauren. Love you. Miss you, legend. But anyway, the net result, 0 trophies won. And yeah, do you remember when we had to watch Cloud9, and a large part of what the analysis desk had to do was remember which map who AWPs on, and people were going, oh, well, this is Mirage, so Boomich AWPs on this one, and this is Inferno, so we had to do that, right? That was ridiculous. And they won fuck all trophies. As the realization sets on Cloud9 management that a dedicated AWPer might be necessary, Cloud9 fans launch Operation Munacy, dedicated to ruining the Russian from G2 and the new look C9, with now no more electronic, but under the leadership of Boomich, Axile, and other up-and-coming talents. Well, they didn't get Munacy, did they? They missed out. There was all that hype when we were coming away from Copenhagen. Everyone was going, oh, wow, it's a real move. Cloud9 have said they'll spend big to bring Munacy from G2. It's going to be amazing. Like, everyone really thought they were going to do it. Never happened. And we've had another year of mediocrity again. And now it looks like they're just breaking apart the team. Now, the problem I've got is, this has all been predicated. Why has Cloud9, an American organization, particularly at this time in history, been dedicated to Russian lineups? Well, it all starts from the top. Because Jack wanted this guy, Groove. And I have never seen a coach kind of have so many graces, so many chances. I guess maybe Xtaz, actually. But he's up there with Xtaz in terms of output to reverence. It's crazy, the disparity between the two. And so Groove has been allowed to assemble 3 lineups, not cheap, in a country based around his native country, which is obviously very unpopular and divisive to do right now, for an American organization especially, and won 1 trophy, won an IEM Dallas, and never got any criticism. And this was the final straw for me. This is why this has been on the screen the entire time. When he gave this interview with HLTV, and you'll remember, they sort of laboured through and got eliminated from the Shanghai Major, and you can see the results here in the opening stage: losing a Liquid, losing a Pain, losing a best of 3 at Complexity, right? Not good results by any stretch of the imagination. And in the interview, he said that, the bare minimum was we had to get to the major for proper and come through the RMR. We did that. And we did the minimum. I'm not happy, but I'm okay about this result. I mean, after you fucking phoned it in for 2 fucking years, and you're going to celebrate the bare minimum publicly. I mean, I'm on the phone after that if I'm your gaffer. If I've employed you, if I've risked my own reputation and had to do all sorts of insane fuckery to get you in my organization. It's Cloud9, right? Which, by the way, Cloud9 in CS, their involvement in CS is some of the most overhyped bullshit of all time. Right? Let me tell you why people revere Cloud9. It's not because of what they won or what they've done. It's because, they had the all-American stream team with the gym bros and the vests when they were all popping fucking testosterone and fucking Adderall and God knows what else. Can't even remember the Sempus interview. Everyone loved that team. I love that team. They were all characters, right? Then they fluked that major in Boston with the Miracle in Boston, right? And that's one of the best stories ever in any major ever, if not the greatest. And that was 2018, guys. That was 2018. And here we are in 2024. And Cloud9 are nothing. And so they talk a good game about how CS is part of their history, but they want to be excellent in it. And they're willing to spend, and we've seen that. But you've got to realign your perceptions about what works in this world. And this entire fucking move, the Groove move, has been an abject failure. Like, to hand over the reins to someone is bold, it's brave, you have to be totally confident in their ability to succeed, but at what point were you going to get wise about this? And so, look, I don't know what Cloud9 are going to do in terms of a rebuild, assuming all of these roster moves are true, and they're going to just end the Russian project. But they absolutely should end the Russian project. They should have ended the Russian project long before now. They should have removed Groove long before now. Maybe tried with a different coach. I don't know. Because, again, online era Gambit, they were kind of fraudulent when we put them in a stadium in Stockholm when Na'Vi fucking destroyed them. So I don't know, but I don't know if C9 has a fucking plan. but they're going to need one, and they're missing out on all these crazy moves that are going down. Like, it wouldn't be the end of the world if it was Cloud9 getting the heroic core. You criticize Falcons because they keep telling everyone, we're building a super team, look, the dominoes. If Cloud9 are like, look, we just want a stable top 8 team that we can maybe build some pieces around, you wouldn't hate that. You can't make any claim about, being big supporters and ambassadors for NA like Complexity because you've had a Russian team on the books for 2 years. But, anyway, all of which is to say, this has been a joke. This has been a waste of everyone's time, money, and effort. And if you're one of those people that care about the geopolitical situation, an absolute affront to you. There is a handful of organisations that would have been allowed to get away with this without way more criticism. Cloud9 just happened to be one of them. And the fact that it fucking didn't deliver anything except an IEM Dallas, which, let's be real, Stewie's winning them after 2 years not playing. Is it even a real trophy? Who knows? Spoiler, I do think it's a real trophy. That was a joke. It's crazy to me. It's hilarious to just see it fail for 2 years, and now they're in a position with like 2.5 weeks left of having to rebuild a team or essentially skip out on a season when we know the next major is going to be in America. Right, we then get into the other bits and pieces. See, I hope people do understand now that when it comes to doing this roster reporting, you literally could just guess. You could guess. You as a fan could get a Twitter account. Well, I mean, this is what they're doing now. You as a fan could get a Twitter account and you could just guess the moves, and you'd probably have, even if you did bad and you swung for the fences, 65%. I said that, look, if I was FaZe and I had to replace Rops right now, the move that makes the most sense is you go to Complexity, an organization that you've had business entanglement with in the past, probably know everybody there through the Game Square acquisition. Jason has publicly said, we will not hold anyone prisoner, and if Elige wants to go, he wants to go. Elige has publicly said, I just want to get back to winning ways. All of a sudden, your FaZe, you need a high production rifler because, Frozen had a bit of a drop off second half of the year, and Elige is obviously saying he's game. Now, technically, obviously, FaZe is an NA org. The CS thing is its own thing, kind of like the Sopranos crew. It's not a family, But the CS team is its own thing. And so I think this move, essentially, it just, all of the stars aligning, it willed itself into reality. And I think it'll happen. But again, this is apparently now another Nell report, I think this was, saying, they're in advanced talks. Again, talks, all talk. But I could see this move happening, and I think it'll be a good one if it does, as I said in the previous Rostermania discussion. I think, I'd like to think Elige could fucking keep his shit together to work with Carrigan in total good faith and hand himself over to the process. You're a long way from Team Liquid and what they did in that team, winning those trophies. And so there's a little bit of trepidation, because I'll tell you this as well. If you try and fucking alpha Rain, you're having a bad day. He's not going to put up with any tantrums. He's not going to put up with any bullshit. So if you're going to come to FaZe and work with Carrigan and work with Rain, assuming they're both still there, you're going to have to come correct. And if you come correct, I think you can have a very good time. I think he can fill Rops' shoes, because I think I looked at the HLTV top 20 this year, and Elige is 19. This is going to be the first year I really strongly disagree with an HLTV top 20. I can tell already from the names that have come out in the positions that they're in, because it seems to be too weighted to what your team did and not weighted to what you did. And Elige is certainly, across the totality of 2024, he's way better than the 19th player. He was a top 10 player for me. So this year, the disparity feels really off, and I don't know if it's because they've gone to 2.1 or whatever, but I would have had Elige maybe 8th or 9th. So it might be the 1 year I do a Maui Snake and do my own tier list once the top 20's all officially decided and announced. because it kind of feels very weird. But I just hope Elige is going to give himself over to the process. And if he does give himself over to the process, there's no better IGL to work for. There's no better IGL. Carrigan famously works via committee. He's open to input. He's open to feedback. He's not just a playbook IGL like that. He's a really good manager of personalities, really good talent. He swaps roles around to best suit the team, very often giving himself the worst roles to facilitate the stars on his roster. And Elige needs to come in with just give me 2019 attitude, right? Just give me that. Just give me that. And then FaZe can be great again. I do think it will be a really good signing. And I want FaZe to, not end on the note that they ended on in Shanghai, mainly for Carrigan's sake. But, I think they started the year so well and had such a drop-off. And part of that is down to this. I do want to talk, obviously, we've already talked about Rops going to Vitality. But there was a thing on the front page today. And you can take this with a pinch of salt. This was a stream from Temper, who obviously is one of the new kind of FaZe. He's not new to FaZe, but I think he's in the restructuring. He's a new co-owner. Again, I could be wrong about that. He's obviously been there for time. I just don't know what levels of equity that he had. And he said this on stream. He was talking about Rops and the reasons Rops wanted to leave. Just before I play the clip, I'll say you can take this with a pinch of salt because the team seems to be run by Carrigan. That's pretty much what I've heard. It's just on an island by itself, and Banks and all the guys only engage with it when they need to. And yeah, I know Temper was the co-founder of when it was the COD 180 trick shot thing. I'm talking about equity. I'm talking about being a founder of an esports org back then to being an owner or a co-owner. It's very different. So, but anyway, this is what he had to say.
We wanted to play with a team with more firepower, more capabilities. The only way he would have been able, that he would really wanted to stay in FaZe was if we would have gotten, a high firepower player, and it just wasn't not possible at the time. There's all the Rostermania going on right now, and just contracts not being ended and shit, just making everything pretty fucking hard.
That's kind of a little bit revealing and instructive about where FaZe are at. FaZe clearly said there that, there was a lot of Rostermania going in and around them, and in the last few months, it wasn't viable for them to get anyone in. There's been lots of rumors about, FaZe not wanting to spend a lot of money on their team, which I don't know. I can't imagine Elige is going for free, unless that's what Jason was alluding to on the Four Horsemen when he said it's not a prison, i.e. you are free to walk out. But, complexity, you got to get some money for Elige if he's under contract, right? So, but maybe it's a case of they can do a deal that's we live in a time when fucking Stown and Yabby are going for $2 million. So, what's Elige worth, theoretically? And you got to be, at the low end, $600,000 or something. You got to get something for him if he's under contract. So we'll see. But anyway, that says to me, first of all, FaZe were not in the mix in terms of the money and the transfers and all of that stuff. And they were going to wait and see. They were going to try and min-max a little bit. But second, and perhaps more crucially, actually, fuck Rops for this. Straight up, fuck him for this. He phoned it in, baiting for a fucking best part of a year, miserable, moaning about the game, moaning about people recognizing he's got a Porsche, moan. Then he's gone to management and said, I want some firepower. You're the firepower, dickhead. This is like in basketball when it's I want to go get my ring, so I'm going to a super team. I need the parts around me. What happened to you? What happened to you? What happened to your fucking agency in this process? And it really pisses me off because it's his drop off, Reddit let it slide, the fans let it slide because it's Rops and he's one of those insulated players. They just don't get criticism. Meanwhile, Blame F actually not doing the things Reddit said he was doing, proved it in Shanghai, And basically, for this year, not the recency bias of the Shanghai playoffs, but for this year, if you just took what the community was saying about Blame F and applied it to ROPS, in fact, if you changed the names, people would be convinced they were watching a ROPS demo. It was ridiculous how much he phoned it in for a year. And he's going to management saying, I want some firepower. Your teammates wanted some fucking firepower, mate. And guess what? Guess who's getting paid the money to be the firepower? It's you. And then the final insult, turn up, storm the playoffs after playing poorly in the earlier stages in the RMR and stuff. And Rain had to drag FaZe through the RMR, essentially. Then you turn up in the playoffs, remind everyone you're one of the best players in the world, and then you fuck off to Vitality. Like, that's so out of pocket. I mean, listen, I know the players are probably taking it well. They're all older. They're not going to get into it. But, like, fans shouldn't be fucking cool with that. Put it this way. That's like... It's not quite as bad as what Figo did, leaving Barca, you know, to fucking go join the Galacticos. But, like, it's pretty shitty behavior. Like, you're the firepower, bro. You're the firepower. Also, kind of undermines Frozen. I mean, the implication there being, Rops thinks Frozen is bad. Because Frozen's the other guy that you would look at to be the firepower there. I don't think he's got any issues with Brokey. But yeah, crazy that clip's just there. And again, the community's just going to let Rop slide. They're just going to let him get away with it. He just gets to do it, I guess. Fine. Few little just quick bits. I mean, we mentioned him earlier. Jax is now officially in free agency. Obviously, he had that brief spell in Gen 1. Jax is out there. If anyone wants a Jax, you can have a Jax. He's a good guy. He surprised me having a late improvement where he played well for a time on G2. I don't know if he's going to get into a tier 1 team. Probably not. Over on Legacy, Nekiz got benched, which you can see he's on a bench now with Barton. I mean, these Brazilian rosters just change all of the time. I can never really keep up with what's going on in the Brazilian scene. You can see the writing was on the wall because when he went to Shanghai, he had a 0.66 rating. I think he was like the lowest. He was like the lowest, second lowest rated player at all of Shanghai. It was like diabolical how bad he was. So he went. Monty wants the Kings of Tier 2. Got rid of Krasnal. Obviously, he was there for a while. He was one of those players that had played through various iterations. Now he's going to be in the free agency pool while they look to rebuild around, Dem QQ, Hades, and Dika. Not really a lot to say about that one. Kind of just one of those. It's significant for the org, but not really in the grand scheme of things. I don't think you're going to see him turn up on any of the top teams. Bait, who did excite me a little bit, but then that excitement turned out to be misplaced. They're also getting among it. They've got rid of Captain Kurt. He's out, and they've brought in a player called Kenzazor, or Kensizor, however you might pronounce it. I always do keep an eye on them because I think with NPL and Head Trick, they're a team that, like, you kind of want them to develop and you want them to get good. And we've seen, like, Ukrainian Counter-Strike with the emergence of Passion. There's actually now probably a Ukrainian 5 you could put together of up-and-coming players that would be a really, really good team. And on a long enough time scale, it's probably gonna happen. It's a shame in a way that Jambo is obviously the hybrid, and Head Trick's there as well, because Jambo's like a really good player. So we'll see. But ultimately, I'll always be keeping an eye on Bait because I think they've got like some good young and upcoming players there, and they grind so much tier 2. They're going to be decent. And look, this Ken Sizer guy, it's a shame because it's the opposition. The opposition, my friends. But he's battering shitters. So and those shitters include Astralis talent. We will see. This one just happened today as well. Obviously, back in the Fnatic days, Regali was considered like, he might have something about him. Bit of a surprise here. FlyQuest picked him up to be their AWPer to replace Alistair. We said that Alistair, even though he had a decent Shanghai, he was one of the pieces that needed to be replaced long term. If you look at the totality of the season. And Regali coming in, I think, is an upgrade. I think it's definitely an improvement. I'm surprised at the logistics of it all, because I guess he has to obviously go out to Australia, so that's kind of like a shock. But he's a player that kind of like lost his way a little bit in terms of his development, but at 22, he's still got time. I think this is a good move. I'd give this a thumbs up. Not that it really matters for any of these moves. These are the ones that kind of don't matter if you're only following Tier 1. But I will add FlyQuest just through the regionality. You're going to see them again. You're going to see them at big tournaments. So Regali will get an opportunity to play against better teams and show what he can do. And he did have that brief spell, as I said, where he looked like, okay, he might be ready for Tier 1, and then it just he didn't quite get over the edge. So I think that's a good move. I'm a give him that and say well done to FlyQuest. It was Alistair had to go. This is a step in the right direction. And then just a final bit of news coming out today. Big have confirmed that finally another Searson, the great LAN fraud, is not going to be in the team anymore. He is going to be on the bench. He's still under contract. I don't really know where he could go, or indeed who Big could replace him with, because as we said last time out on Rostermania, when we were talking about the dropping of Rigon and the potential benching of Searson, they are committed to this German language project, evidently committed to German players, German and Austrian players, or German-speaking players. And I think it's so limiting right now, particularly at a time when the best rosters are international. And you can get anything you need on the international market, essentially. Like, maybe because Jambo was being talked about for Falcons, why can't Jambo come onto this team, right? And you all just speak in English. That would just be, that'd be wicked, right? That'd be exciting. Like, if I'm a big fan, I'd be like, oh, okay. But instead, they're going to go and they're going to farm some, German speaking players from Tier 2, Tier 3, and then try and make them Tier 1. So, I don't know. But look, this has been a long time coming. This is another one of these guys that unfortunately never delivers on the big stage. Always flatters to deceive online or in groups. When the big games come around, he's missing. And it's just not tenable. It's just not tenable when you're an AWPer. So, I mean, we talked a lot about this last time out. That's just a good thing as far as I'm concerned. All of which is to say, that is where we're at with Rostermania. Now, there's going to be a bunch more moves made between now, which at the time of recording this, it's just turned midnight on New Year's, so it is New Year's Day now, it's the 31st. Or New Year's Eve, sorry, I should say. There's going to be no business done for the next few days, and then probably by the 4th and 5th, we're going to have a better idea about where the rosters are all going to be. And there's still lots of questions up in the air, like things that we need to think about, right? Let's just quickly sort of wrap it up, because this will be like next time in Rostermania. And I told you this was going to be the craziest Rostermania we've had probably ever since CSGO was released. So some of the questions we need to ask ourselves: where is Spinks going to end up in Vitality? What's going to happen there? Where's Jimmy going to end up officially from Mouse? What's going to happen there? Do Heroic even have a team? By the way, on that note, it's contingent that they have a team because of their agreement with the Esports World Cup. You have to enter a team into that tournament, and they are taking the Esports World Cup stipend. They got to have someone. So are they picking up a real team, or are they just going to throw 5 shitters together just to meet the contractual obligations? We also need to know what's going to be happening with Liquid. Who is Nertz a replacement for? Is he the last man in? Who knows? That's another one. Obviously, as well, there's a number of teams that should be having rebuilds and making signings during this time. Fnatic, for instance, NiP, for instance, teams that allude that they want to get back to being where they want to be. So there's still a ton of stuff to get settled between now and whenever. And obviously, who's going to win the lottery and sign Hooksy. Very important stuff.